My guest today is Caterina Pavone, with over 2 decades of diverse business experience in payments, retail banking, technology, and marketing across Europe, the UK, and Australia. Caterina is a seasoned business leader renowned for her acute skills and ability to foster strategic partnerships, and has consistently driven organizational growth and profitability. She recently embarked on her own entrepreneurial journey with the company Pavone Limited and has a steep learning curve with a collaboration with Care Miles, a pioneering force in driving climate action through innovative solutions, and the EV Club app, promoting greener, more efficient EV charging solutions worldwide. Join me as we delve into Katerina's journey, navigating challenges out of her comfort zone and uncovering the building blocks that have shaped her remarkable career. A very warm welcome to Atlanta Diaries, Kat.
Oh, thank you, Enma. I'm really excited to be here today and quite honoured, actually. So thank you for welcoming me.
So let's begin with the first question. How would you describe your childhood, and in what ways do you think it played a role in shaping the person that you've become?
Yeah, so I'm actually Australian from Italian heritage. So bit of a whirlwind there. My family migrated from Italy to Australia back in the 50s and 60s. Very family orientated, but very traditional heritage and a traditional view to the female and the female's role in the family and in the economy and in society in general, where the female was the head of the family in terms of the household, not the head of the family in terms of being the breadwinner. And I was actually one of the lucky ones. I had a very intelligent mother and a very, I would say, entrepreneurial father in terms of his forward thinking of women in the workplace and, you know, their ability to have a career and contribute. And he wanted nothing more than that for me, for his daughter. So his big view was, you know, I treat my son and my daughter the same. He heavily encouraged me to get my driver's license and, you know, was a real supporter of me going to university, and not just going to university to become a teacher or to become a bank teller, like my granddad actually thought I would be, but to be a businesswoman. And, you know, even when he was being questioned by other members of the society, oh, your daughter will never get married, she'll be too intelligent, he turned around and said, look, even if my daughter wanted to get married, I will support her through university. And I had my mum to look up to because she was a working mum. So, you know, I had her at the front of me steering the ship and showing me the way. And then I had my dad's hand behind me, you know, supporting me, not pushing me, but supporting me along to be able to have my career. So that was really, really phenomenal to have his support. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore, but right until the end.
Such a beautiful start to the conversation, Kat. Any mantras or life lessons which you think stay with you till today from your mom or your dad?
Yeah. I don't know about mantras, but you know, I saw my dad as a visionary, you know, in terms of his wanting to support women. He didn't just support me, he supported my mum going back to work. He supported my mum in getting her driver's license. You know, again, real step forward. And we're talking about back in the 70s, way before the whole movement towards women equality and women's leadership. And because of that mentality, I became a real fighter. And then I became a supporter of others. And, you know, speaking of family, I'm so pleased that I've been happy and able to mentor and guide some of my nieces and godchildren in their careers as they've moved into university and taken on business careers in different shapes and forms. So giving back to the upcoming society and the upcoming Italian women has really been fantastic.
You know, it's very interesting that you talked about driving license, Caterina. This really reminds me of my conversation with Srishti from India, who actually talked about the fact that mobility in a woman gives her a lot of sense of independence and empowers her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's huge, especially in economies that are growing or areas that don't have the public transport network like we have here in the UK. I mean, in Australia, if you're not driving, it's very difficult to get anywhere, even to do your local grocery shopping, even to get your hair done. Extremely difficult because the public transport system is just not there. So, definitely a driver's license for some females is something that is not always a given. And it's hugely an empowerment element and can take them a long way, especially for their own personal growth.
Yeah, a lot of psychological comfort and independence. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to know that what kind of themes sort of are showing up, like the kind of challenges or the kind of conversation you're having with your nieces or your mentees. Do you see any kind of parallels between, the conversations today versus what you probably had with your so-called mentors?
Yeah, obviously it's different generations and they are different in what they're looking for. Some of the hurdles I faced was I wasn't very good at asking for something when I did a really good job. I always waited to get the pat on the back from the boss or the, tap on the shoulder to say, you're doing an excellent job. We want to promote you. I wasn't confident enough to ask for the promotion. I always waited for that affirmation. And I think that probably hindered some of my growth in my career. And as a female, I didn't feel strong enough. I know that sometimes it's a personality thing, it's not a male female thing. As a generalization, women aren't as good at it. And I think I literally had to move roles or move companies to get that next promotion. And it was often, too late. I'd already signed the contract with the new organization. And when I resigned, it was like, well, why are you going? You're fantastic. You're one of our, best employees. It's like, well, I'm going to a better job over there. Oh, but what if we can find you something here? You should have said something. But by then it was a bit too late. And that was something I worked on with my mentors to be able to have that confidence and not making myself feel like it's all right to ask. With the younger generation and, my nieces, but also those that I've been mentoring, we always hear about, Gen Y coming in and asking for the corporate jet. As soon as they've actually done 1 month's work, they've been doing a good job and they go, great, where's my corporate jet? That was the line back then. But what I am finding, and as a result, there was a lot of jumping and changing because they were never satisfied, as a generation. I'm actually finding now that's flipped on its head and there's a sense of maturity coming from some of them. And what I always share with my mentees is don't be afraid to ask, but make sure you ask after you've delivered. Be in the role for a significant piece of time, have your results there. It's a bit like your report card. Don't be afraid to have the good conversation and say, these are all the things that I've done. I think I'm ready for the next step. And if I'm not ready yet, what is it that I'm missing? And how can we put a plan together to get there? And a lot of the time, the younger generation are actually like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good way to go about it. And I think from my experience where I was too scared to ask versus the experiences of they're not too scared to ask, it's finding that nice medium between the two. And I think that's what I've been able to learn and now share with those that are coming up through the ranks now.
I do wonder sometimes that why is it that employees need to ask, why is it that organizations aren't seeing it on their own? And that could be the lens because of which you just felt like changing jobs. Because if I had to be an HR person right now, Kat, my first question seeing your profile would have been, how come so many changes in roles? Like, why would you not just stay in the same organization? So I don't know, just a comment.
There are times where you feel like you reached the peak of what you could learn in an organization. And that certainly happened in my career. In one of the roles that I had, I was managing the cash cow of the business, and I'd been doing that for 3 years. And unless I did something, completely different, I kind of felt like I reached my peak. And I had advanced in that organisation, and they were brilliant at doing exactly what you said, which is recognising the talent and rewarding. So in order for me to learn more and grow, I needed to go to another organisation. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes it is a change because I was just too scared to ask for that next step up, and felt like the only way I was going to get it was to, move out. And that's something now that I can share with others.
So with the wisdom of hindsight, just asking would have been better than keep on changing jobs, because that is also stressful at some level, right? To restart and replant your career.
Exactly. And sometimes I didn't ask and somebody else
Mm.
asked, and they actually got, the job that I wanted. And it was like, oh, well, we didn't realize that you were, interested in that area. So
Mm.
it's okay to speak up. It's just how you do it. And as strong as I was from the beginning of my career, with the help of my family, my dad and my mom, there was maybe an embarrassment, because I felt like if I'm really doing a good job, like you said, someone would tap me on the shoulder and tell me. So, yeah.
So talk to me about your first job, and how did it help you build those building blocks to pursue your leadership journey going forward?
Yeah, so my very first job outside of university was actually on the phones at Optus Communications, which is still going strong today in Australia. And it was a fantastic first job because the leadership there was absolutely phenomenal. And I think definitely shaped the way that I approach things, and also the type of leadership that I look for. Bob Mansfeld was the CEO at the time, and he didn't have an office. He sat in a cubicle like everyone else, albeit his cubicle was a little bit bigger. And all of his direct reports were all in cubicles all the way around him. And we would have like what we called Optus TV, which, it would be broadcasted around the organisation. And for those that could go in person would go in person. And the question was asked, well, why don't you have an office? Why do you kind of sit there? And he said, well, two reasons. One, I can hear everything that's going on. And two, if I have a question, I don't have to ring five numbers to ask five people to maybe the fifth or sixth person might have the answer, or walk around to one office to the other. And, I could waste 30 minutes doing that just to kind of get an answer. He said, I stand up, I pop my head up and I go, hey, and I ask the question, and everyone pops up, and then we have a conversation and we get the answer, and it's just so much more productive. And I thought that was phenomenal for, a CEO of a huge organization, just to have that foresight of, how things can work more efficiently and effectively, and also break down those walls. And he always, every week, sometimes more than once a week, he would walk the floors, go and see everybody. He would stop and talk and chat. And he would also get on the phones and speak to customers. Another leader that walked the floors and stuff like that was Ajay Banga, when he was CEO of Mastercard. He's now with the World Bank and leading the World Bank. But similarly, when he would come to the London office, he wouldn't sit hidden away in an office. He'd walk around and chat to everybody, and he'd walk into the little coffee area where we all made our little Nespressos, and he'd be there making a coffee. And I went up and chatted to him in the kitchen, and so did a number of other team members. He was happy to talk to everybody. And from a leadership perspective, to be approachable and for people to just be able to walk up to you, no matter what level they're at, was really something that's ingrained in me. And that's what I tried to do as well. as a leader when I started to become a leader of people.
Walk us through your decision-making process when you were considering these career moves. I'm sure there must have been some thought process behind it, right?
I'm glad you asked that. I probably don't share this enough, but I'm a big mapping person. I like to draw my little
Mm,
career map and where I want to go. And I don't have it up on my board, I have it in a book. And it changes because we all change. But when I'm at that point where I'm starting to reassess and saying, I think I want more, whether more out of the current role I'm in or more as in I want to do something different. I sit down and I do my little mind map. Well, I should call it a career map. It basically says, what am I good at and what do I love? What am I not so good at? And what are the things I don't like to do? And then if I had the perfect job, what would it be? And which of those skills can I bring to that job? And then where can I get that job? And I kind of go, yeah, and I make the decision because I see that I can move to that other role, wherever it may be. And these are the great things that I can bring to that role and move away from the things that I'm not good at or I don't like doing. So I make sure that in the next role, I'm even better because I'm getting rid of the stuff that doesn't work and just focusing on what works. And then what do I want to learn? Because I don't like moving to a role that is, I guess, just about, taking what I currently know. I don't want to walk into a role where I know everything. I love, love, love learning something new because you don't want to be starting a new job and then 6 months later saying I'm bored again. Yeah.
mm,
So that for me, that's the point of decision is when I do that little map. And sometimes I do the little map and I go, oh, actually, I'm doing a great job in what I'm doing
mm.
now. I love it. I want to continue doing it. But what else can I do to make it even better? Because the map is not always about moving. The map is sometimes it's just getting things out, on paper and visually seeing it. And if you see one of my maps, there's lots of circles and arrows and, it looks like a little viso diagram in the end. But that's essentially it.
Very interesting. So, how often would you do this, Katerina?
I don't think there's a timing on it. I think it's just usually, when I'm starting to assess what next. Or sometimes it could be I could have a discussion like this with someone like yourself, Enma, and you can say, well, what's next for you, Kat? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Right, I need to go do my little mind map and see what's next. Or it could be I'm doing my performance review. So I don't like to put timings on things like that because you need to do it when your heart is saying, I need to put this down so my brain and my heart can match.
Mm. Since we talked about the Gen Zs and the millennials, sometimes these conversations come to them probably every whatever quarter.
There's nothing wrong with doing it quarterly. There's nothing wrong with doing it monthly. It's not always about moving to the next role. I mean, once I did it, and one of the areas that I picked out, which was really important to me, was leadership and mentorship. But at the time, I was a self contributor.
Mm.
So I thought, I love my job, I love what I do, but how can I get that leadership mentorship in my current role? And at that point, I actually reached out and started to become part of the women's leadership program. And then I became part of the committee. And then I became a chair. So sometimes it can be creating something for a gap that you have, but then gives you job satisfaction and expands your current role without you doing a different job.
So, what was the turning point in your career when you got the opportunity to move from individual contributor to a leadership role? Because I know so many of my clients actively want to stay away from leadership, right? So, I think that itself is a journey and a, sort of intentional decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know whether it's the right thing to say, but I feel like I was born as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
I was still at school and I was doing part-time work, and automatically, after being there for a couple of months, my boss came to me and said, well, look, I'm going to be going away. I want to be taking my mum with me because it was a small business, but I have all of these people working for us. You understand the business. I can see you get what we're doing here, and we have full faith in you. So we want you to lead the team. So right at the ripe old age of 16, I was leading a team of people. Many of them were a lot older than me. So if somebody came to me and said, we would love for you to lead the team or to take on, some people, or, here's a work experience person that we're bringing into the team who wants to guide them, I was always the first one to put my hand up, because I loved leadership and I like to see people thrive, and I like to, see people develop and grow, and it helps me develop and grow. I'm a huge believer in reverse mentorship, especially now where a lot of the young ones coming up know so much more about the digital world than what I do.
Absolutely. I totally get that. Let's talk about your transition from Australia to the UK. So, any anecdotes or examples as you navigated your journey? Like any cultural shocks in that journey? Yeah.
Yeah, I need to give kudos to my husband. To do a big move like that, I had two young children, aged 3.5 and 6.5 at the time. And we literally sold everything up and moved from Australia to the UK in 6 weeks. And that would never, ever have been possible without the support of my husband. And not just the support of him, yes, we're moving, but the support of him in supporting my career to move. So Mastercard were phenomenal in giving me the opportunity to be able to apply for a role in another market. And yeah, there was a lot of nuances. I mean, I think part of me was a little bit naive in thinking that the UK was just like Australia because we are under the Commonwealth. Let's face it, we speak the same language, we have the same government rules. Oh no. The more time I spent in the UK, the more I realised actually Australia is more like the US than what it is like the UK. So that was a real eye-opener for me. But what I was able to bring to, I guess, the organisation when I moved was just a little bit more knowledge about what goes on in Asia Pacific, predominantly Australia, because when people in the UK think of Asia Pacific, it's always Singapore, Hong Kong, China, all the big markets. Even sometimes they throw India in with that. And, Australia is a small country and it does get forgotten. And sometimes some of the learnings, especially the regulatory learnings in Australia, are more advanced, or at least have happened there first. So a lot of those learnings and understandings I was able to bring with me. But then being here, I was able to just walk down the corridor and hear everything about what was going on in Europe. So the UK has been a really big contributor to the expansion of my career and just really broaden my knowledge without the need of, having to physically go out there and learn it. Really, really changed the direction and the way that I approach things. I mean, I've always been a bit of a broader thinker, but I can certainly recommend, and I'm not saying everyone should move to another country and then stay there forever, but, a stint in another continent, I wouldn't say another country, another continent, can do wonders for the breadth of your knowledge, and then also later how you approach things, because it does broaden your thinking process.
I can't agree with you more, Katerina.
Haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I tell everyone in my hometown, like everyone needs to get out of that city, forget continent and country. I tell them, get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about it. Like, talk to me about the cultural differences. You said, you didn't realize that Australia was more like the US than UK. What does that mean from a personal standpoint? I'd love to hear something more.
So, I mean, other than, what we call things, I mean, I can tell you some funny stories. So, in Australia, we call trousers pants. In America, they call trousers pants. In the UK, pants are actually underwear. So I remember one day coming in and I came into work. I was literally here, I think it would have been maybe about 2, 3 weeks or something. And I had one of the seams in my trousers, pads, had ripped. And I came into the office and I sat down and I turned around and I said to the team, because, we were team, everyone kind of like comes in with their coffee in the morning, has a chit chat. Oh my goodness, can't believe it. I put my pants on this morning and now they've got a rip in them and I've got to take my pants to get fixed. And there was
Oh
dead
my God.
silence. So everyone thought I was talking about my underwear. And I turned around and I'm looking at everyone and I'm like, what's wrong? And I went, this, look. And I was showing everyone and they were like, no, 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 Kat. They're trousers. So,
Mhm.
and boom, flush of red straight away, as red as an olive skin person can go. So that was quite a funny story. But, on a more serious note, one thing that people say that Australians, and I guess, as I said, we are a bit more American, Australians are very, very different to the English, is that we say what's on our mind. We're very direct. Now, there's two different types of direct. There's aggressive direct, and then there's passive direct. I hope that I'm more of a passive direct, and I say hope because, I'm sure I've come across differently with different people. But the English tend to ponder on something, majority of English. Now, I'm not saying everybody's like that, but as a culture, and they're less likely to say how something is or how they're feeling or what they're thinking. They'll ponder on it and they might say it later to one person. So that was a real eye opener for me. And, we would sit in a team meeting and, the leader of the team would say, oh, okay, we've got this issue. Can anyone suggest how, we might sort it out? And everyone would be like, oh, okay. And no one wants to point the finger. No one wants to talk about anything. And I would always be a bit vocal, and say, oh, okay, well, this is what I think we don't do well as a team. And this is what we can do better. And no one would say anything. And I was like, oh, okay, am I the only one that wants to contribute and make the team better? And I had to then take a step back and have a conversation with my leader and say, what's happening? I feel like the team is not cohesive. And he's like, oh, no, 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 Kat. You'll say your piece because that's how you are as an Australian, but they will then think about it and come and tell me separately. So they are contributing to the team and the team's very important to them, but they may not vocalize it straight away. And that's similar with feedback. Being an ex-HR person, feedback is also the case. Being an Australian, if something happens, and I think the South Africans are very much the same because I worked with a few South Africans at Mastercard as well. If something good or bad was happening, the feedback is immediate. Oh, gosh, you can't do that. We can't do it that way. We've got to do it this way, da, da, da. Or, oh, my God, that's awesome. Fantastic. Hey, team, we just did a great job. It's immediate. Feedback just doesn't come, and sometimes doesn't come until it's performance review time, which by then you can't do anything about it. And I love that the English are very much concerned about hurting people's feelings and being considerate about people's feelings. And that's why I said, there is a different type of directness. I would hope, again, that there could be a happy medium, that, people in the workplace can be a bit more direct. but is a positive, directness, not an aggressive directness. So I think bringing the English and the Aussies and South Africans together, or maybe Americans, we might be able to find that nice balance in the middle.
Yeah. In fact, my perspective is that I often feel that, organizations, I'm not sure if they recognize this need, therefore, to bringing this cultural awareness, this training to people who they're moving from one part of the globe to the other. Because this is what creates those misunderstandings. You're confused on what are they doing, why are they not speaking up, and they are like, why is she so loud and, candid and over straight, right?
And loudness comes from being Italian as well. So you got that added complexity with all the hands and stuff, as you're seeing now. So, like you said, if you had that proper training, it was one of the things that could have been shared.
Any leadership faux pas or any leadership mistakes, which, with the wisdom of hindsight, you see as learnings, and how did you navigate them?
Oh, yeah, too many. I think the first thing is you just aren't perfect. All leaders are going to make mistakes, and especially new leaders as well. One of the mistakes I made early on, and it's always stuck with me, I was leading a team of 10 and of all different ages. And the team, would ask me for help with different things. And I went over to help one of the ladies. She was struggling with something on one of the computer systems. And she turned around to me and she said, Kat, just stop. And I stopped and I was kind of like caught aback. She said, I'm an older woman. I don't need you to mother me. I need you to show me how to do this. And it really, really touched me, not in a negative way, in a positive way, because what I was doing was, almost treating her like a child. And that was pre me having any leadership course experience or anything like that. And, from that moment, it's always stuck with me whenever I lead somebody, if I'm their manager, if I'm their leader, if I'm their mentor or guidance, I always make sure now, I always take a step back and think, am I teaching them? Am I coaching them? Am I guiding them? Or am I mothering them? Like essentially telling them what to do and trying to be, a mother and smothering and, just too much. And that's a really big lesson to learn, especially for someone like me. I'm very warming and I like to bring everyone, along and, make sure everyone's okay. But it can be, a bit much. And, I think the proof now for me is I've got people that worked for me or people that I've mentored that, ring me up to this day and say, hey, guess what? I thought of you the other day, or send me a message. I had this problem and I knew that, it was nighttime, your time. So I couldn't get a hold of you. So I sat back and I thought, what would Kat do in this situation? And then I thought about how you would handle it. And then I handled it that way. And it was right. And I was like, okay, that's great. That means I've actually succeeded in guiding them, not mothering them, which is a big difference.
And a very rewarding experience, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Kat, you were also part of a lot of boards. So, again, a question which so many of my clients bring up, like, how do I earn that seat at the table? How do I make my voice heard? So, talk to me about how did you earn that seat at the table and what do you believe are key contributions you bring to the table as a board member?
Don't be afraid to put your hand up and say, I want to be part of this. Some of the early boards, which was the women's leadership boards that I was on, were very much because I had a gap in my career satisfaction or job satisfaction. And then I went out looking for something that I could be passionate about. And I put my hand up and I said, I want to be part of this. And a board is not necessarily always being a non-executive director. A board could be a women's leadership board. It could be being an advisor to somebody. I've just joined one recently with Buzz Evolution. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the big formal, NED. So I think that's where people want to get to essentially, but that's not the only boards that are around. So look for what you're passionate about, and that's where you should, steer towards. And I have been so privileged to have had a career where I have been able to look at lots of different parts of the cogwheel in terms of a business. So what I can bring is a nice, almost like not a 360 view, because I've still got some gaps, but at least a bigger picture view of how one thing in the organisation can impact a different area, or how improving one area of an organisation can have a nice domino effect in improving other areas. The other thing I can bring is the strategic partnerships, so understanding how forming the right partnerships can actually really move a business, and also how to treat those partnerships for longevity. Because some people go into a partnership and then the partnership falls over and then they go and seek another one. That's a lot of work to go and find lots and lots of partners. But the most important thing that I think I can bring is passion. So if you're going to look for a board, look for something you're passionate about. And, women's leadership was something I was very passionate about. And now, the other thing I'm passionate about is sustainability and climate change. And I'm just thrilled to be able to be working with Care Miles and helping them launch. And I know nothing about climate change. Well, I didn't. I do now. But all of these things that I could bring to the table and a passion for climate change, I'm now starting to get involved and being invited to all these, different talks and things like that on climate change. I'll never be an expert, but I've got the passion.
I love the fact that you started this by saying your hand up, right? From the shy and the embarrassed Caterina, you're professing the other extremes. Given that, again, you've not hesitated to move industries, move functions, and now a completely new pivot, right? I'm wondering about imposter syndrome. What kind of imposter syndrome did you experience?
Oh, I think imposter syndrome tends to always come when you're applying for a new role, or even once you've got the role, going into the role. You always have an imposter syndrome. But I think if you go back to, well, what can I bring to the table, and focus on your strengths, but don't be embarrassed to say, I don't know. I don't know everything. For example, I've just said, I don't know everything about climate change. I'm learning a lot. I'm keen to learn it, but this is what I can bring to the table. And I think that earns respect. And just listening to what people want and what they need, because often you might not be the expert, but the fact that you can interpret what the needs are of the client or of the business, and then go and look for the solution or help formulate a solution. And, somebody can be an expert, but if they're not listening to what the client or the business needs, they can be in their own little bubble creating something that nobody wants or needs, and it's not driving the business forward. When I decided to set up on my own, that was the big scary thing for me. I mean, I've always wanted to. I did a bit of consulting when I was on maternity leave with my children. I did consulting with Mastercard advisors. And I know the way my brain thinks is about, looking for solutions. And I've got all of this experience. So I knew I had the right elements, but it was putting them all together and having the courage to step out on my own. And it was actually speaking to people who were already out there doing that or had done it before, and getting the encouragement from them that actually helped me make that move. And it was really funny, and I can highly encourage everybody to do this. If ever you want to start something new, whether it be, a startup or, a charity, or even like start your own running club or whatever it might be, pop it out in the ether. For me, my ether was LinkedIn. For some people, it's Instagram. Other people, it's Facebook, whatever it might be. And see what feedback you get back from people. The most phenomenal thing for me was when I actually sent out that I was setting up on my own. Hands are shaking as I pressed that send button, and it went out on LinkedIn. The amount of feedback I got from people that I worked with, 15, 20 years ago, people who are friends, people who are friends of friends, even people that were in the same organization as me who I kind of dealt with, but not really, were reaching out saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're, leaving the business and you're going to be setting up. You'll be brilliant. You're going to knock it out of the park. Good luck. My confidence went from like low, low, low to sky high. Send it out. Tell somebody you're looking for something new. Biggest confidence boost ever. So that got me over the imposter syndrome. But I think I'll always have it because that's the kind of person I am. Every time I, apply for a new board or, apply for a new client application or a client project, I always think, oh, am I going to be able to deliver for them? Am I going to be able to do the right thing for them? But I know I've got the backing of my network, and that's really important. So surround yourself with awesome people.
So, what prompted this decision to pivot to entrepreneurship, Caterina, given that you had such a meaningful and an impactful corporate journey?
Yeah, it's a combination, really. I like to come up with different ideas. I like to do things differently. I like to challenge the status quo, so to speak, and I like to deliver. So it's not just all about coming up with the vision and the ideas, which is great. I mean, I love that. I come up with a different idea every day, but it's also delivering those ideas. So, I felt like I had enough corporate experience to be able to now go out into the market and do that for multiple organizations in different shapes and forms. So they might be launching a new product and they might want someone to come in right at the beginning of the journey and help them shape the strategy of, where's the gap in the market? Who are we going to go after? How do we build the plan? All of that end to end. Or they might already have that already set up and they just want someone to come in and go, all right, you've already done all the thinking. That's great. Thank you. Now they want someone to help them actually execute and get it over the line. Or they might want someone to help them build those strategic partnerships. Again, that's something that I can help them with based on the experience that I've had.
So, any fears and apprehensions as you navigate this journey?
Oh, every day. I don't think you can ever be sitting and saying, I'm 100% comfortable. I think the market is quiet at the moment. So, the big apprehension is, what if the market doesn't pick up and I don't have enough clients on board? That's always a concern because at the end of the day, the bills have got to be paid, right?
Of course.
So, yeah, that's the case. Then I might need to go back into the corporate world. Hopefully, I will have enough to be able to drive me through because what it does is enables me to help many, not just help one. It gives me work-life balance to be able to now be there for the children when they say, I need someone to come and pick me up. I don't need to say, I'm in the city, find your own way, or to, holiday when I need to holiday, or if I really feel like going for a walk through the forest to clear my mind, I can do that. But at the same time, if I've got a big project on board, I can get my teeth stuck into and go through that. And I guess it's a fear, but not so much. I enjoyed corporate life. So if I need to go back to corporate life, it's not the end all. But it would be really nice to continue the flexibility and continue the entrepreneurship and give to more and many.
So, what's on the bucket list if the flexibility, which I'm sure will stay?
Oh, so one of the things I've always wanted to do is hire a villa in Tuscany or somewhere in Italy for a month while the kids are on school holidays and actually work from there. So I can actually go out in the morning, get all of my goodies from the market, come home and cook a nice lunch and eat al fresco in the evening. And the other, I guess I want to pick up painting again. I haven't done it for, oh goodness, so many years, either painting or drawing. I learned to play the piano. So, yeah, a couple of bucket list things there, which will be lovely to be able to do without the stress of worrying about cost of living. That would be really nice. But, I'm just like everybody else in the globe. I'm not at the top of the tree and I'm not at the bottom either. So I count my blessings that I'm not. I'm somewhere in the middle, and it would be really nice to be able to have that balance.
Beautiful. And I wish you all the very best, because Italy is beautiful. And like they say, if you visualize it, you get it. So I wish you all the very best. And thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, Enma. It's been absolutely amazing. As I said at the beginning, I'm quite privileged and, honoured to have been asked to do this. And hopefully for the audience, they've been able to pick some little nuggets out that will help them in their career, in their path, or in finding a board or finding a work-life balance.
Thank you for being a part of this incredible journey with Atlanta Diaries. I have had the privilege of hosting guests who courageously shared their most vulnerable selves with me. And even if only a small segment of these conversations can champion the journey of one person, it will be worth each and every moment. And together, we know we can create an even greater impact. So I do have a humble request for you. If you found value in these episodes, please consider sharing the podcast with your friends, family, and on your social media. I would also love to hear your thoughts, and will really appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review or rating. See you next week for another inspiring journey on Atlanta Diaries.